Today, I'm gonna break down how I shot and created this spooky Halloween commercial.
This Halloween, step into the unexpected, where sweet delights and spooky frights collide. Delivering incredible moments for Halloween, birthdays, and beyond. Send a gift they'll never forget. If you dare, with lightning-fast shipping, ordering is a piece of cake. Visit sendacake.com. That's sendacake.com.
This was a fun and spooky TV spot I made for my client, Send a Cake. They came to me with a specific product in mind and asked if I had any ideas for a Halloween-themed commercial. So I came up with the concept of following trick-or-treaters into a haunted house, where each room highlights one of their products with a Halloween twist. When I'm brainstorming ideas, I usually jot down a quick concept first, then head into Canva to create a treatment and storyboard. That way the client can visually understand my exact vision, and once approved, my team can help execute the idea that I came up with. Once the concept was approved, it was time to scout for a location. I always recommend using sites like Peerspace or Gigster for finding the right spot. Since we were working on a tight budget and didn't have a crazy amount of money to spend on set design, I leaned heavily on the location itself. We needed an old Victorian style house to sell the spooky old world vibe of the commercial. Fortunately, I found the perfect place. For my crew, it consisted of a tight-knit team, myself as the director, producer, and editor, my DP, gaffer, grip, set designer, and 2 PAs. Filming was a bit tricky because while it was a Halloween ad, we shot in the middle of summer. The biggest challenge is it didn't get dark until 9:30 p.m. Since most of the scenes needed to feel like it was nighttime, we debated whether to shoot from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. through the night or black out all the windows during the daytime. We went with the latter, which if I had to do it over again, I would have definitely shot everything through the nighttime because it would have saved us so much time and gave us a more authentic feel when shooting light from outside to inside. For our intro shot of this commercial, this was actually our last shot that we filmed because it had to be completely dark. As for the lighting, it was a simpler setup. Our key light or our moonlight is off to the left. We are using an Aperture 600 with a lantern diffusion and a blue gel to mimic the moonlight. We have the light on the Mini Max boom arm to get it as high as possible to replicate the angle of the moon. Next, we're using another Aperture 600 on the left with a cone on it pointing directly at the house. We have that synced up to the app with a lightning effect and had our gaffer hitting the trigger during the scene to mimic lightning flashing onto the house. For the inside lights, we took a bunch of RGB lights and tube lights and put them everywhere in each room and set them to red and had them be pointing up at the ceiling to create this colorful look. I had a large smoke machine in the bushes to create the fog, and we used fishing lines on both sides of the gate with 2 people pulling to create the gate mysteriously opening. This scene was one of our longer scenes to set up as it established and sold the world we're trying to sell to the viewer, but it only took 15 minutes to film once it was set up. In post, I found some lightning overlays on motion array, then tracked the shot in After Effects and add that lightning into the scene to sell it, and it came out something like this.
This Halloween, step into the unexpected.
We shot this entire commercial on the Canon R5C with the DZO Vespid Prime lenses. These lenses give such a high quality look while still being affordable, which is why they're my go-to. And that brings me to the sponsor of this video, DZO Film. When shooting a commercial, film, or just for fun, lenses play a huge role in the look and style of the video you want to create. DZO cinema lenses are some of my favorite lenses and are always my go-to on set. They're affordable with that high quality look, are super well built, and I couldn't recommend a better lens company to check out. They have a bunch of different types of lenses to create unique looks and styles for your next video, so go check out DZO lenses at dzofilm.com. The next scene is the office scene, which actually was the first scene we shot on the day. The wild thing about this scene is when setting up for it, and I'm sure no one will notice until after I say it, but the product isn't actually in the shot. We had to add it in later in post. When setting up, we went into the product box the client sent over, and there was pieces missing. Luckily, having experience in green screens and replacing items, I knew that we could shoot the scene and add it later by filming with the same exact lighting and movement. As a director, you'll always run into problems on set, and it's your job to find solutions and fix those problems. For lighting, we used 2 projectors off to the left and raked them across the room, one onto the desk and window with a tree gobbo, and one onto the floor so that we wouldn't lose the depth desk and ground blended together from how dark it was. Then we shot an aperture 300C into the ceiling as a warmer color to play as if it was the candles in the room giving off that color. To spin the chair, we had someone lay behind the desk and just move it with their hand. All the windows had to be blacked out with Duvetine as it was 2 p.m. in the middle of the day. In post, I used Red Giant Super Comp software to blend the colors, then I tracked it in After Effects to create the same movement. For set design, we used a bunch of the Halloween spider webs you can buy off of Amazon, but to make the look real and authentic, the trick is to pull it apart into the tiniest pieces possible so it's very lightweight and very thin, and that'll give you that effect. For the donut floating and disappearing, it's actually a really simple trick. I filmed the donut on a green screen and on a stick. As the donut spins every 360 degrees, I take a bite out of it until the whole donut is gone. In post, I just line up all those shots so it looks like one spin, and that gives you the effect that a ghost is eating the donut. The next scene is our witch scene, and one of our more difficult scenes because we need to create this smoking witch's cauldron. Unfortunately, we are not allowed to use the haze machine in the house due to the smoke can damage the walls. So we opted for dry ice and water to create the effect. The problem was the dry ice wasn't creating enough smoke, so that's something I had to do in post with a simple smoke overlay and blending technique. The other thing was we needed a large cauldron, and the biggest ones we could get were about the size of a pumpkin. So Javier came up with the idea of getting a planter from Home Depot and spraying it black to make it look like a large cauldron. We cut 2 holes out in the back so Alex could reach his arms up to raise the book out of the cauldron for this scene. I wish we had a little bit more time to build a proper mechanical rig because I felt the arms were a little too shaky when raising the book out of the cauldron. Timing is always a tricky thing, especially when it comes to a more ambitious project like this. And this was our second scene of the day. I knew with creating the schedule and that we were running already out of time to shoot everything, that I would have to pivot. I decided to scrap the ending scenes for the day and focus just on the actor and storytelling parts, and I figured I could shoot the entire ending scene in studio, and any of the inserts for the products we could grab later as well. Since we didn't have the budget to film on location for 2 days, as a director, again, you have to pivot and make changes when things arise. It's your job to solve these problems and solve them quickly without wasting time and money. For the witch scene, we lit the entire room with the Aperture Nova 600, set it to green, and pointed at the wall right behind our actor. We put a small MC light in the cauldron to create color off the smoke. We used an Aperture 300 with a projector and shot it into the window with a tree gobo, setting that to lightning to make it look like there's lightning coming from the outside, creating a shadow with the tree that would be outside. I would have loved to do it for all the windows, but unfortunately we didn't have enough time or the equipment to create projectors onto each of those windows. The last light we have is just our key light off to the side to create a little bit of shape to our actor's face. All these shots were on sticks, and then we added the movement in post. The last main scene I'll talk about is the fortune teller scene. This scene was to take a crystal ball for the fortune teller to raise her hands in the air, and the crystal ball changes into the Send a Cake Halloween box. This was a simpler lighting setup. We had the Aperture 600 on a lantern with a skirt overhead to light our characters and their faces. We had the Aperture Nova 600 set to purple, pointing at the wall, sitting directly behind the actors. Everything else that made this scene pop was due to the movement and set design. We used candles in the background to create a lot of depth and separation between our actors and the wall. For movement, I used my Gazebo slider and the FreeFly Ember camera to capture the scene. We shot the first shot in 24 frames when pushing in and 500 frames when pulling back. Luckily, with the lights, all we had to do is turn them up higher to a higher percentage for the slow motion part. I have Alex hiding behind the table with the fishing line pulling the trigger of the box to set off the orange dollar bills flying everywhere. The trick to blend the two shots together, a lot of it's done practically with the movement of the slider, but also the flashing lights in camera right above. This allows the viewer not to notice the big drastic change between the crystal ball and the Halloween box itself. Editing a 30-second commercial is always a challenge, especially with time constraints. You want to tell a complete story while showcasing the product, but you also have to be mindful of what shots are absolutely necessary and where they can be cut. For example, the establishing shot was critical for setting up the world, but I also had to cut out parts where the trick-or-treaters were entering the house to save time. My number one tip for making your productions look higher quality than the budget allows: be creative. Use lighting tricks like the projectors or effects play with angles, and always be prepared to pivot when something doesn't go according to plan. A lot of the work comes down to pre-production and preparation. This will save you both time and money. I hope you enjoyed this behind the scenes breakdown of the Send a Cake Halloween commercial. If you found any of this helpful or inspiring, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more filmmaking tutorials. And until next time.
This Halloween, step into the unexpected. Where sweet delights and spooky frights collide. Delivering incredible moments for Halloween, birthdays, and beyond. Send a gift they'll never forget, if you dare. With lightning-fast shipping, ordering is a piece of cake. Visit sendacake.com. That's sendacake.com.